In a bottomless abyss, a young girl named Erlin was falling, while her older brother watched with desperate eyes, screaming her name at the top of his lungs. He muttered to himself that he would reach her soon, asking her to hold on just a little longer. Signs of exhaustion and panic appeared on the face of the blond young man with violet eyes as he sweated profusely. He saw himself surrounded by monstrous phantoms attacking him, in a state of extreme terror. He was overcome with regret, wishing he had kept running without looking back at that time, and wondered to himself if he would have been able to grab her outstretched hand if he had done so. His thoughts were interrupted by Erlin's voice telling him no, confirming that it was long too late. Her dark phantom materialized before him, placing the blame entirely on him, telling him that everything happening was his fault, and that if it weren't for his foolish actions in the past, he wouldn't be in this hellish place. The scene shifted to a luminous forest where a woman stood behind the young man, walking hand in hand with a small child. The young man looked at an old man groaning in pain, then his groans escalated into a deafening scream. An old man with savage red eyes was rushing towards him, screaming for his blood. Calmly, the young man dodged the crazed man's attack to the side, then delivered a swift blow to his neck, causing the man to scream in pain. At that moment, the young man called out to a creature named Medini, and a faint beep sound was heard. A small, owl-like creature emitting light appeared, while the man continued to scream, before his body fell to the ground with a thud. The young man thought to himself that, as expected, this wasn't the right time either. The young man, known as the Alchemist Eden, began to explain the situation. He explained that the man, a rare mushroom collector, had been attacked by a parasite. This parasite, usually found in wetlands, controls its host through a leech-like tail, causing the host to feel an overwhelming urge to suck blood, which explains his red eyes and the appearance of fangs. Eden reassured the woman that the man would be fine now that the parasite had been detached from his body. The woman thanked him and told him she would give him the promised reward immediately. Eden initially refused the reward, saying it was all right, but mentioned he had just one question. But the woman insisted he take it, explaining that the amount was exactly 10 million, and thus they would owe him nothing. Eden reluctantly took the heavy bag of money, realizing she didn't harbor good feelings for him. He thought that this huge sum on the outskirts of the kingdom of Credio was probably equivalent to a full year's salary. Nevertheless, he resolved that he must do what he had to do. Eden asked the woman if she had heard of similar incidents before, giving an example of a race like vampires. As soon as he mentioned the word vampire, Eden was struck in the neck. The woman realized what she had done and was shocked by her action, noting to herself that she had flinched instinctively upon hearing the word. As Eden trembled in pain, he asked her in astonishment what kind of exercises she usually does, and a notification appeared stating, Day 2601, palm strike, 296th time. He thought that this was still okay, then told his little companion that they had another place to go, so they should hurry. Later, he saw a small child dressed as a vampire joyfully declaring that he was a vampire. Eden reassured the old woman that the little boy had no other problems, explaining that he was imitating villains because he admired them, and advised him to be careful. Then the woman threw a small bag on the ground in front of him, saying this was the promised reward. She told him in a sharp tone that with this arrangement they considered themselves to have received no help from him, and asked if he understood, to which he replied in the affirmative with his head bowed. The woman scolded the child, named Lucy, for his behavior and for imitating vampires, expressing her regret that because of the situation, she couldn't call the knights and had to rely on bad people for her requests. Eden, smiling, took advantage of the situation and asked the woman again if she had heard any stories or rumors about vampires. But he suddenly started coughing up blood as he received a violent punch from the woman. A system window appeared before him indicating, Day 2602 of vampire hunting, fist punch, 176th time. The woman's reaction was extremely violent, and she questioned how these traitors dared to mention the name of vampires. She then ordered Lucy to go and shouted that vampires must be exterminated, making Eden wonder to himself why everyone's reactions were so exaggerated. Memories of the bad treatment he received flashed through his mind. Someone had spat on his foot once. Another time villagers threatened him with a shovel, and the knights had chased him just for reporting vampire sightings. Eden felt exhausted and clutched his chest, realizing his body wouldn't hold out much longer if things continued this way. He lamented that everyone's reaction was exaggerated just because he mentioned the name, wishing they had at least listened to him a little. He then turned to his little companion, Medini, assuring her that he didn't intend to eat anyone. Suddenly, another boy with green hair appeared, hugging Medini, and reminded Eden that he had told him before he would follow him to the end. Eden was surprised by his appearance and asked him how he got here again. Eden wondered how the boy managed to follow him all this way from his village, and the boy confidently replied that he knew the area around his village like the back of his hand and could follow him wherever he went. The boy then bowed before him, begging him to accept him as his disciple, declaring his desire to become a super alchemist like Eden. Eden was puzzled as to where the boy had heard this, and the boy explained that he had read about him in last month's alchemy magazine, which included an exclusive article about Eden Isaac, one of the 5 super alchemists, making Eden curse that press interview in his mind. Eden remembered agreeing to the interview because they promised him valuable information, but all he got was a tip on how to make Medini's skin glow, describing them to himself as scammers. The boy continued his pleas, insisting he would do anything he asked in exchange for being accepted as a disciple. Eden flatly refused his request, telling him that if he wanted to become an alchemist, he should go to the Oracle Academy in the center of the kingdom of Credio to learn the basics. But the boy argued that life is a hands-on experience, and if he became Eden's disciple, he would learn faster and be able to find his own style of alchemy. The boy insisted he had been ready for a long time, so Eden sat down with him and skeptically asked him how much he knew about alchemy. The boy confidently replied that he had already finished understanding the origins of alchemy and basic sciences from magazines, and that he had prepared well by learning basic martial arts like climbing trees quickly. He added that all he needed was to obtain the ether, which is called the source of alchemy, to believe he could practice basic alchemy. Eden was impressed by the boy's knowledge of the ether's existence, calling it amazing. Eden confirmed that what the boy said was not impossible, as the ether is the infinite and sole source of energy. Eden revealed that they possess most of the ether on the continent of Eden, which excited the boy who felt his chance had come. But Eden followed up his words by raising one finger, explaining that of course, there was one problem. Eden explained that the problem is that all the existing ether is used to keep the city of alchemy floating in the sky, and it is said to be used to maintain the acta. As a result, the amount of ether that alchemists possess is zero, and although they understand the system and laws of the world a little more than others, they are no different from ordinary people. The boy asked in amazement how Eden could use alchemy then, believing it to be impossible. Eden replied that they made a contract. He explained that they make this contract, risking their lives, to generate a force equivalent to the power of ether. It is known that pure life force can produce ether-like energy. Based on this fact, they use their own lives as the price for using their alchemy. For this reason, alchemists' wages are very high, because they literally fight using their souls. Eden added that the average lifespan of an alchemist is half that of a normal human, and that dying at a young age is common among them. They are also sent to remote places for the purpose of knowledge and exploration, and they must regularly fulfill requests. He told him that this is the truth that cannot be learned from books, and asked him again if he still wished to become an alchemist after all this. The boy answered in the affirmative without hesitation, and reminded him that he was the alchemist who saved their village. He recounted how a plague had spread in their village, causing bodies to suddenly wither, and despite their pleas for help, all the neighboring villages turned their backs on them. Even the knights who protect the kingdom refused to send support, claiming the village was too remote. Just when everyone thought it was the end, the alchemist appeared like a savior and solved the problem. The boy admitted that the villagers didn't thank him, but rather threw money at him and ordered him to leave, but he insisted that it was different for him. Eden commented that the fact of their betrayal of humanity would not change, even after a long time. He began to narrate a historical story that the boy might have read about in books. 200 years ago, vampires began the worst event in the history of the continent of Eden, the War of the Races. Within just 1 week, 70% of humans disappeared, like many other races. People began desperately searching for alchemists, but the alchemists refused them, claiming they were still incomplete. They were content to watch the horrific scene from the sky, wishing for a miracle like everyone else. Eden continued that a miracle did indeed happen, as the kingdom found a power called the Blessing of Sisu, and with this power, the knights were able to defeat the vampires. Peace returned to Eden, but the traitorous alchemists are still hated by the people to this day. The boy interrupted him, saying that even his 4-year-old brother knows that story, and that what he wants to talk about is something from the distant past, and now they need reconciliation and interaction. Suddenly, Eden stood up abruptly, which surprised the boy, and told him that he must leave now, expressing that the conversation had been enjoyable after a long time. Then Eden smiled and told the boy he would see him later in the Acta. A few moments later, the boy heard a massive explosion and wondered with concern if Eden had also heard it, noting that something big seemed to have happened. Meanwhile, Eden had already taken off. Realizing the explosion came from a specific direction, he had a strong feeling that this time it might be related to a real vampire, as the information he had about a bipedal creature that kills by sucking blood matched. He hoped his long search would finally pay off, and he prepared for battle, summoning his companion Medini and readying his alchemical pistol. Eden quickly moved towards the source of the sound, but he noticed that the closer he got, the air became strangely colder. He suddenly stopped, shocked by the scene before him, where the ground was covered with the remains of strange, torn-apart monsters. Medini began to emit a repeated warning sound, making Eden wonder if someone else was in the area. Suddenly, a huge snake-like monster attacked him from the ice, but Eden managed to stop the attack, using an alchemical ability to slow time. Eden wondered how a blood snake could be in this place, as this creature is supposed to live only in the Nivma desert. Despite not understanding the situation, he decided he couldn't miss the opportunity to get such a valuable sample. Considering himself lucky for this discovery, he aimed his pistol and fired at the creature, but was surprised to find another person still alive. Eden realized it would be a headache to deal with this situation, before a large group of blood snakes attacked him from all directions. He used an alchemical ability to slow time, and unleashed the skill on all the snakes around him. The blood snakes froze in place, unable to move. Eden noted that since there were many enemies this time, he could move more freely. But it was already too late. He used the phantom shot alchemical technique, and fired into the air, eliminating all the snakes at once. He concluded that the rumors he had been hearing were because of these creatures. After the battle ended, he checked on the condition of the other person who was injured, and asked with concern if he was still alive. As he was preparing to give him medicine, the man interrupted him to say there was no need, because he was going to die soon anyway. Eden continued his conversation with the mysterious man, who turned out to be another alchemist wearing a frozen white coat and suffering from severe injuries. Eden recognized the tool the other alchemist was holding in his hand, wondering if it was the seal of life. The dying man told him he would know if he opened it. Indeed, when Eden opened the seal, he confirmed that it belonged to an alchemist who came before him, and that he had surpassed the hour of death. The seal of life is an essential tool for alchemists, created to prevent the reckless use of alchemy, as the time recorded on it freezes when alchemy is used. When the allowed limit is exceeded, the seal enters a state of surpassing the hour of death, which represents the critical time between life and death. Looking at the seal, Eden deduced that the alchemist before him had faced a large number of blood snakes, and that he was a mid-level alchemist like himself, belonging to the Frost Alchemy group, Nix Elo. The dying alchemist spoke with difficulty, calling Eden by his full name, Eden Isaac, confirming that he was the alchemist of time. The man expressed his astonishment at seeing Eden's alchemy for himself, describing the ability to stop an opponent's time as a power that transcends the essence of nature. He explained that he now understood why they were called super alchemists. He recounted how the place was a complete war zone, and how the blood snakes had chased him so unexpectedly that he couldn't check his seal of life in time, leading him to overuse his alchemy. The man sighed regretfully, saying his goal was to die of old age, the dream of every alchemist, but now he was dying for the most common reason among them. He confessed that the feeling overwhelming him was emptiness more than sadness. Considering the use of life as a raw material their cursed fate, Eden asked him if he had any last wishes. The man replied that he had no specific wish, as he was always prepared for this fate, but he felt curious, telling Eden that he was a special being among them, and that a different end awaited him, before taking his last breath. After the man's death, Eden noticed a strange blue butterfly hovering around him, and suddenly felt a strong grip on his hand. He heard the voice of the deceased alchemist, Elo, echoing in his mind, telling him to listen carefully. The voice told him of a forest untouched by a single ray of light on the outskirts near the western gate of the kingdom of Cretio, and that deep within that forest, a missing vampire is said to be sleeping. Eden shouted in surprise, wondering why he was being told this so suddenly, and about the immense power he was feeling. Elo's voice warned him to be careful, for inside there was a monster that had transcended death. After the voice and the blue butterflies faded, Eden cried out for Medini. He quickly picked her up and decided he must chase the blue butterfly, believing that the recent event must be connected to it. He took to the air, searching for it, wondering where it was. After hours of fruitless searching, he sat down exhausted, wondering where it could be. As Eden lay on the ground exhausted, Medini told him she had sent a death signal to Acta, so Mr. Elo's matter would be fine. But Eden denied this, insisting he wouldn't report anything until this mission was over. He believed the owner of that blue butterfly surely knew the vampire's location, and although he didn't know how that person knew he was searching for vampires, he decided to trust the information. He looked at a picture of himself with a young girl inside his seal of life, realizing that the work he had been searching for 7 years might finally be accomplished. Elsewhere, strange green butterflies hovered around a lady in a black dress. A man was in the area, crying for help, vowing he would tell no one what happened here or the truth about vampires, and that he wouldn't utter a single word. But a mysterious voice